All right, welcome. My name is Carl Soule, and I'm going to be spending the next half hour or so talking about a lot of the new features inside of After Effects, particularly how they pertain to motion graphic workflows. We're introducing some new concepts here with new data-driven workflows inside of After Effects, as well as some other new properties to make it easier to link things together without having to understand how to write code and how to use expressions inside of After Effects. I'm going to be showcasing some of these features next. Before I jump in and get started though, I wanted to show you my favorite new feature that I think everybody here who uses After Effects is really going to like. How many could use a keyboard shortcut panel like this inside of After Effects? Okay. I know a lot of people using different types of keyboards. As I've been doing demos over the years on laptops, there's always been some keyboard shortcuts for After Effects that were hidden over on the numlock, on the number pad. And I used to actually carry around a USB number pad just so I had access to those keyboard shortcuts. Now we have full customizability inside of After Effects so that you can take any property, just drag it and drop it to a key to assign that to a particular key on the keyboard. You can save your keyboard shortcuts in the same way that you can inside of Premiere, inside of Adobe Audition, and these will also sync with your Creative Cloud profile. So if you move from workstation to workstation, we make it very easy to pull your keyboard shortcuts down from the cloud and use them on any workstation. So it's a small thing, a long time coming. We're very excited. It's something that I personally feel is everybody is going to benefit from. Now, the first thing I want to talk a little bit about is some improvements made to working with fonts and working with text animation. And the first thing about this, as you're starting to work with fonts, it's become crucial to kind of understand what your fonts are on your system, what they look like. With the new motion graphic template workflows that Jason was just talking about, it becomes a kind of a crucial issue to make sure that you're using fonts that other people who are going to use your motion graphic templates are going to have the same fonts, or at least access to the same fonts that you already have. So we've updated the character panel inside of After Effects. First off, we now see samples of each of the various fonts directly inside of the character panel, but we've also added a couple of small filters available to you up here at the top. Now, one of these filters out and shows you only the fonts that are typekit fonts. Now, why is this important? Typekit, of course, is part of your Creative Cloud membership. And if you're working with a team of editors, you're creating motion graphics that you're handing off to an editor, it's important that they have the same fonts available on their system. If you stick with typekit fonts, if the editor opens up your motion graphic template, they don't have the font currently installed, Premiere will actually say, hey, we detected a font here that you don't have, but guess what? It's up in typekit. You want us to sync it down for you? Yes? Okay, wait a moment. Okay, it's done. Now you have that font. So by staying within the typekit fonts, you can really make sure that people who are also using Creative Cloud, that are using the other tools, will have access to the same fonts that you're working with. There's also a favorites filter in here, and I can click on any font and say I like Proxima Nova, and then at that point I can just choose favorites as I'm working with different fonts, and I can see only my favorite fonts at any point in the process. So just some nice improvements dealing with and working with different fonts. Now, as we've been working with character animations, another thing that's come up, we've added support for a lot of different languages, including Indic languages. We now have support for Hindi, and as part of this, it became necessary to also be able to work with ligatures. How many font nerds do I have in the audience? Typeset. How many know what ligatures are? Okay. For some people, they are very important. Simply put, ligatures are just a simple artistic ways of tying various letters together, different characters together, to give the font a more stylized feel. In this example here, I actually have, there's two letters here that interact automatically. You can see the T and the I here are actually linked together. I can quickly turn this on and off, so before ligatures it would look something like this. After ligatures it kind of has a different artistic look to it. So for people who do a lot of text animation, this is something crucial. If you've done a design in another application, like somebody's done a mock-up in Photoshop, they use ligatures there. You now have the ability to have ligatures when you work inside of After Effects. Where this really starts being cool is when you start doing things where you take, 3D engines. If I'm doing per character animation inside of After Effects, any of the per character animation, if ligatures are turned on, it will actually treat those letters as a single group as it does the animation work. So here I'm just using the Cinema 4D renderer inside of After Effects, and I've done a little bit of extrusion on the text here, added a light just to give it a little bit of a 3D look. But you can see that that's how we've now improved on text animation inside of After Effects. Now, something that I can't really show you, but it's something that you will feel about the new version of After Effects is we have added a new class of GPU acceleration inside of After Effects. If I go into my project settings, I can turn on something called GPU acceleration. For those of you who know Premiere Pro and remember all the talk about the Mercury playback engine, it's something that provides a lot of real-time functionality, accelerated functionality inside of Premiere. That is now inside of After Effects. And most of our focus in working with GPU acceleration has been on certain effects and presets, so that going through and dealing with color effects, dealing with certain types of effects like some blur effects, we have added these little icons for certain effects indicating that these now fully operate on the graphics card in the computer and will be faster working on the graphics card. Rather than focusing on a small subset of effects inside of After Effects, the team this year focused on the core transform properties. So when you're working inside of a layer, inside of After Effects, the transform properties, position, scale, rotation, opacity, even motion blur are now GPU accelerated. So when you're doing these functions, we're now getting faster and better performance by doing them on the GPU. And if you are using these functions and then you add these additional GPU effects on top of them, the frame stays on the GPU the entire time. It works much, much faster. So again, we're committed to better performance, better support, working with the GPU inside of After Effects. So by focusing on these core properties, we think all of you are going to benefit from the GPU acceleration that's now based inside of After Effects. All right, now I'm going to jump into a simple demo here. I'd like to just show you something dealing with a common animation function that we like to do. Here I've got an example where I'm starting to kind of build out a graph or a chart. And I've already gone through and animated these circles, but now I need to tie these lines to the circles. It's always been possible to do this in the past, but usually the quickest and easiest way to do this is to kind of manually adjust properties. There's been advanced ways of doing it. If I know how to write expressions, I could create some expressions to kind of link these various paths together. But we want to make that much simpler in this release. So as you're creating motion graphics, it can be a much simpler task in doing things like linking these lines and these circles together. So we've introduced a new panel over here on the side. It's called the Create Nulls from Paths panel. And inside of this panel, I can very, very quickly create and add control points or nulls to these various objects and then start linking them together so that I can quickly make those lines animate automatically without having to write any code, without having to do any manual processes. So really quickly here, I'm just going to grab one of the lines here and I'll just select the path for that. And I'm going to click this button here marked Points Follow Nulls. So what that's going to do is it's going to give me two little control handles here. So I now have a null that I can use for manipulating each end of this line. Make it very, very easy to control that path. Now I'm going to do the same thing with this circle here. I'll select this circle, and since I've already animated this circle, I'm going to click this other button here called Nulls Follow Points. Oops. Well, I do have to select the circle, so let me just come down here and just select the path. Click that button, there we go. And this has very quickly created a series of points for, control points for that circle. I don't need all of these, so let's just delete some of these out. I just need one. And now, at this point, I can grab either end of the line, let's grab that end, and use the pick whip tool to just say, hey, link this to that. And I'll just line up these control points here. And just like that, I've gone through and tied the end of that line together with that circle. So this is something that took many, many steps in the past. Now I can do it in a few simple steps. I can add these points and I can start to connect the dots. Give you a sense of what this final piece will look like by linking all of these together. You can see this is actually making that graph grow. And this is more of a real-world example of where you might see a type of graph like this, where these various lines are actually drawing out and automatically connecting the dots between the circles. So I'll show you one more example of how you can use these types of shapes and expressions. There's a lot of different ways that you can use these nulls and control points. So this is taking one of the points of what was a rectangle. We're looping it around kind of a figure 8 pattern. We've got one point has a wiggle property applied to it. One other one is parented to that triangle within the circle. So we have very nice ways of linking and controlling these points, which again does not require having to go in and learn expressions to be able to take advantage of the power inside of After Effects. Now going back to this graph that I had just a moment ago, we're seeing more and more times data is coming in faster than it's possible to create motion graphics for. In a lot of cases, we have things like weather information that is changing rapidly. We have things like election results that are coming in on a regular basis. And we need to be able to update motion graphics and have visually compelling motion graphics that take advantage of data files. So in this next release of After Effects, we are introducing the idea of data-driven graphics using a common format called a JSON file. JSON is a JavaScript object notation. I got it. I'm seeing Andrew from the After Effects team is in the back there. Using JSON files, we can now import a JSON file into After Effects and actually start to link properties in our animations to that data. So if you've never seen a JSON file, let me switch to a different graphic that I have here. So this is an animation where we've got rain in the background. The thermometer is actually animating here, and you can see all of this different data that's coming in. All of that is actually stored in an external file. If I click on the expression here, you can see that this is actually referencing this Seattle weather.json file. And if I come in here to my JSON examples, I can reveal this in my operating system. I'll just double click on it. JSON, the great thing about JSON is it's simply a form of syntax that is human readable. So I can go through here and actually look at what is in this information. So in this case, I've got, time zone is America, Seattle. If I wanted to change that to Tacoma, I could. Tacoma is a city very near Seattle. Maybe I want to use this instead. All I have to do at this point is save the file. And if I come back over to After Effects, it has updated to say Tacoma in the graphic for me. Now, if I want to take a completely different data set, let's say the weather has come in and I need to refresh the entire set of data, all I have to do is replace this just like I would replace a video clip. Replace footage, and I could point this at New York City and hit import, and the whole, whoa, that's a hot day in New York. I think I was playing around with this, this data file a little bit earlier. So let me jump back over here, and I'll just open the New York City weather. And this one, let's see here, we have temperature, yes, 183.62 degrees. I tell you what, let's make that something more like what Amsterdam is seeing today, and we'll do it in Celsius. I'm going to say that that is 14 degrees. And again, we'll hit save, come back over here, and that updates. So by having a data-driven workflow like this, it really applies it to many, many different places where we have this data that's coming in that needs to be updated. It makes it very easy to reuse the same graphic rather than having to customize the graphic each and every time we want to work with this. Now, another thing we can do with JSON data is it's possible to build out a control layer where we have sliders that we can go in and actually play with and adjust what part of the data we're looking at. So this is an example where I have a graphic similar to what you would see in an election result. We took a poll of all of the states in the United States, and Americans are not consistent in how we describe soft drinks. Some people say pop, some people say the word soda, and some use a different word. So we want to create a graphic that references this data. This is coming in via a JSON file. Right now, this top area here is looking at the data from the District of Columbia, which is the small area right around here. I want to see the data for California. And what I can do is by building out an expression control layer, I can use a slider to actually change which state I'm looking at. And you can see that the graphic actually updates based on the data that it's pulling from that JSON file. So if I have a big data set and I need to be able to just update this graphic to different parts of the data file, these expression controls can be linked to various parts of the JSON file so that I can pull up and just modify certain parts of the motion graphic while I'm using it. Okay, now that's what is coming in this next release. Now, one thing that we have been looking at, and something that you will see us release and begin to talk about, in addition to supporting the JSON format, we looked at what JSON offers today as far as doing motion over time, and this is not something that's currently part of the specification for a JSON file. So we are going to be introducing a new file format called an MG.JSON file. This is a motion graphic JSON file, because we see a lot of people gathering data that is time-driven. Many cameras today have started to add sensors on the camera about how the camera is being used. In things like motorsports, we are seeing sensors on the vehicles, on the riders, that gather this data as an event is going on, and we want to be able to tie into that data. So what we are doing is creating this new file format called an MG.JSON file. And the motion graphic JSON file, we're also providing a series of tools that will let people take existing data sets and convert them into a motion graphic JSON file. So in this case, I'm actually using a graphic file that's got some data from a car, and that data includes the speed of the car is actually driving this graphic that you see here. And if I come in and select this rotation value, I can even see on a graph how quickly the car moves over time. As that time-driven data is coming in, it's actually driving this speedometer graphic that you see here. So this is something that we've partnered with, some different people have been kind of testing this out. We've been looking at different types of data sets that people are using out there. And so we're really excited to see this motion graphic data file come to After Effects, enable people to use their motion data inside of After Effects to drive graphics, as simple as complex as you'd like. All right. So what I've tried to do here is just give you kind of a quick taste of some of the new features inside of this release of After Effects. We think there's a lot of different things that are going to help you in your creation of motion graphics moving forward. I'll show you one last thing here, just very quickly. If I am working on a particular graphic, a particular title, and I want to start to build this out in sort of a motion graphic template format, and I want to have certain properties be able to update in Premiere Pro, After Effects has a new panel that I can work with. I can take this composition and open it up into something called the Essential Graphics panel. Now this panel is something that can be used to pull information. Maybe this text layer that I have for current conditions, I want to be able to modify that text over inside of Premiere Pro. I want to be able to customize it when I bring this over into Premiere. I can take this text value and bring it over into the Essential Graphics panel. And I'll go through here and maybe today. This is my default text here. And I can go through and start to grab other bits and pieces of this. I can grab color, any property that is visible here, things like the color of the thermometer. Maybe I want to have that something that could be modified. I'll go ahead and drag and drop that in here. We will call that mercury color. Now, as I do this, I am building out the controls that will be available to the editor who then uses this motion graphic template over inside of Adobe Premiere. So this also provides me a quick and easy way to test different color schemes without having to dive into layers upon layers to get into a particular property. If you've ever been handed an After Effects project built by somebody else and they say, oh, just change this value and this value, very simple, easy to find, and then you see you have 400 layers in the composition and you have no idea where to start. Essential Graphics is a crucial new panel inside of After Effects to just provide a quick and easy control for these different options. So in this case, I want to be able to test out different text up here at the top. So currently it says current conditions. Maybe I want this to say today's forecast. There we go. And instead of a red color, we'll bring up a color picker, and maybe we want something more of an orange color. I'll have that update. Maybe I grabbed the wrong property. Let's see here, mercury, shape layers, contents. Okay. I think you guys get the idea. I think I grabbed the wrong color. Okay. So by building out these simple controls here, if I now take this and create this as a motion graphic template, I can click on the Export Motion Graphic Template button, save this out, and now I can export this out as a motion graphic template. I can put it on the Essential Graphics on this machine. I can also save this as a template in a library. And using the power of Creative Cloud, I can share that library with a team of editors that I might be working with. They might have access to this, in a different country, different part of the world. As long as I've put it in a library that we have shared, everybody will have access to this new motion graphic that I've created. And anything that has been placed in the Essential Graphics panel is controllable by the editor. They will have the ability to go in and actually make changes to it. All right, with that, I think I am out of time. We've got another wonderful presenter coming up next. I believe it very well may be Mr. Jason Levine. So I'm out of time. Thank you guys so much.